Okay. This is now tarot lesson number 165, and it's called How to Be Confident with Cards. And I'm calling it this because somebody emailed me to say that they had begun, or they were getting into the tarot, and they weren't quite sure how to be confident, how to read with confidence. So I said that I would make a video for them. And this happens to tie in with a writing project that I've got, because a while ago I mentioned the Tarot Workbook. So I've got my notes here. I've got ideas about the Tarot Workbook. So part one, or the first part, is going to be dealing with obstacles people come across, or dilemmas or difficulties that they experience with reading cards. So there'll be sections on, for instance, what do you do with court cards? What do you do with reverse cards? How do you do a reading? That kind of thing. And I'll give you ideas and suggestions with practical examples and samples, so that you can identify where you feel weak or where you feel in need of something else, something more, and you can read that section. So that's going to be the first part. The second section is going to be a kind of reference thing on the tarot and how it's created, how it's built. And so it's going to be a reference section, but it's not like the same old stuff that you would find in books, because I'm going to be giving not updated information, but okay, the best way to do it is to give an example. So I happened to read this, I can't remember which book it was, but it has to do with how, if you, let's say that's the horizon, if you measure where the sun, after the sun goes into, after springtime begins, the sun at noon in the northern hemisphere, maybe it's up to there. And then the following day, it's a little bit higher, a little bit higher, a little bit higher. The sun keeps getting higher in the sky at midday until about the 21st of June. And so the angle between, you've got to look up to see the sun at noon. It's like 23.5 degrees, that kind of thing. But then when at the end of Gemini, when the sun goes into Cancer, about the 21st of June, the sun doesn't go quite as high in the sky. And it begins a downward path, so to speak, till it gets to Capricorn, till it gets to Christmas time. And then it begins to go up again. So you've got this idea of going up and a turning point. And so I read in this book that in the distant past, humans used to build pyramids. And the top of the pyramid represented the idea that at a certain point, the sun reaches a maximum declination, I think it's called, and then it begins to go down again. But it said, in the book, it said people created or built pyramids and towers to mark that point, which made me obviously immediately think of the tower. And I should have taken it out, but I didn't. Oh, there it is. There's the tower. So what do we do with the tower? We can add the idea that when the tower comes up, you've been going higher and higher. Things have been going easily. You've been getting better and better, right? The same way that the sun goes up and reach the high point. So with the tower, you've reached the high point, and now it's time to revise your opinion, to change the goal, or make an adjustment to the direction in which you want to go, or what you're aiming for. And so when the tower comes up, it's time for a rethink. It's time to appreciate that you're going to be going down, or there's going to be a change in your trajectory. Not because you've got bad luck, or because the gods have it in for you, or because you're paying for bad karma, whatever. It's nothing like that. It's just the fact that there's a cycle. And for a while you're going up, and then you reach the high point, and then you're going down again. And so when the tower comes up, if you are willing to reconsider your direction and your goals and maybe make some changes to the goals, things will go well. Whereas if you're not willing to accept that maybe you're not going to keep getting better and better and better forever, but there comes that if you reject the idea that there's a time for a rethink, then things are going to go badly for you. And that's what the Tower represents. So it's like that idea, you can connect the change from Gemini into Cancer in the position of the Sun, and you can apply that logic or that method to answer a question, because it's not about bad things happening. So that's what the reference section is going to be about. It'll have information about what we can do with cards, because I've got here, if you go with book meanings, and you look in a book and we're looking for the answer. See, we could do, I thought of this, and I thought, if the question's what's 2 plus 2, and you pick a card, that's the answer, it's 4. So 2 plus 2 equals, what does 2 plus 2 equal? That's a particular kind of question with a particular kind of answer. But if somebody asks a question about, are they going to meet somebody and have a good relationship and fall in love and all the rest of it, that's a different kind of question. It's not as straightforward as 2 plus 2, because you've got the nature of the questioner at that moment. You've got what they expect, what they believe, what they've been trained to accept. Are they willing to be a doormat, or do they want control in the relationship? You've got all those factors to consider. And then you've got what steps they're willing to take to find or to go out and meet or to attract a new partner. And so a tarot reading is much more complex, or there are a lot of unknown factors, unknowable factors maybe. And that's the value, I think, of the Rider deck, that you've got a picture in each card. So here, am I going to meet somebody? If you get a card that shows a man and a woman, a partnership, a couple together, and it's upright, yes, you can do that. Where if it's upside down, then maybe you're not going to meet the person you think you want. But that's because if you were to think it through, you would discover that you actually want somebody else. But maybe at this point, the question doesn't want to know that. So if you read a book for an answer, you get a kind of, and I wrote down here, it's one-dimensional kind of answer. And I was wondering how to talk about that. And I remembered when I used to teach in Switzerland, there was one of the staff members, she was Scottish, and she couldn't really speak French. But she would say things like "ce n'est pas," which means it's not. But then she would say "ce n'est pas possible." And whereas if you speak French, you say "c'est pas possible." The spelling's the same, the word looks the same, but in French it's possible, in English it's possible. So if you say "ce n'est pas possible," we can understand what you mean, but you're not really speaking French. So if you learn a meaning of a card from a book and try to apply that meaning, it's only one-dimensional, and you can maybe get the right answer or talk generally about it, but it sort of doesn't flow, because you're sort of not talking the tarot. You're talking somebody else's meaning and applying it. And I was thinking as well, when I lived in Holland, in English there's a vegetable called a cucumber. And the Dutch word for cucumber is very similar kind of spelling. So I said at one point with some Dutch friends, and I said something about, do you want, or can we have some komkommer? And they all laughed, because in Dutch, the word is komkommer, not komkommer, like cucumber. It's komkommer. And so it was obvious that I wasn't a native Dutch speaker. I mean, I got the correct pronunciation, but it's that same kind of idea. You can turn a card, and there we've got the Knight of Swords. and you can look in a book for the meaning of the Knight of Swords, and you'll get a kind of one-dimensional answer. And earlier this morning, I went to ChatGPT, and I typed in the Tower. What does the Tower mean? And I got this kind of boilerplate, one-dimensional, typical answer. But somehow it left out a lot of understanding that you get from the tarot itself. So you can look up the Knight of Swords or ChatGPT and you get an answer, but it really doesn't answer the question, I think. So, okay, I'm almost going to show you the cards in a moment. So, before there was a Channel Tunnel, I used to live in Britain and Europe, and so frequently I would go from London to Paris. And if you're in London and you're going to Paris, you can take the train. In those days, you would take the train to Dover, take a ferry across to Calais, and then take the train from Calais to Paris, right? Step 1, step 2, step 3. Or you could go to Folkestone, just down the road from Dover, take the ferry from Folkestone to Boulogne, and then take the train from Boulogne to Paris. You end up in Paris. Or if you were adventurous, you could take the train to Harwich, take the overnight ferry to the Hook of Holland, and a train up to Amsterdam. Then you could drive to Paris. So, with 2 + 2, there's one answer, and it's either right or wrong, and you know the answer. With a question like, "Am I going to meet somebody and have a good relationship?" there's more than one answer. So, if we're looking for the answer, quote unquote, we can be disappointed, or we can try to force standard meanings into the answer, and maybe it'll be like 60% right, but somehow it won't tell the story of the relationship or what's going to happen in the relationship. So in the same way that we've got 3 ways, I mean there's more than that, but let's say we've got 3 ways of going from London to Paris. Am I going to meet somebody and have a good relationship? There's step 1, step 2, and step 3. And you turn them over. And step 1 is the 6 of Swords upside down. So maybe it's, what is it? Don't look to other people to save you, because we've got the person moving the boat, and we've got the woman and the child in the boat, and they're being moved and transported to a different shore, but it's upside down. So it's a bit like, if you're going to meet somebody, don't look for somebody to come along and save you and make everything better. You need to find that within you first, and then you've got a better chance of attracting somebody. Then we get Death reversed, which means you need to go through a major transformation. So it's not like you're one step away from meeting somebody and having a good relationship. You need to get yourself together, update your ideas, and then the Tower. And then there's a bit of a shake-up, and you've got, there isn't going to be a meeting. But because it's upright, yes, but you're going to meet somebody who's very different from what you imagine right now. And it's a bit like, not that this is the same kind of thing, but when I was 25, I always wanted to marry a blonde. There was something about blonde women that was really everything. Whereas I actually married Susan, who's a brunette. And so my taste in the ideal woman changed after I turned 30. And so it can be this kind of thing. Whereas if you told me when I was 25 who I was going to marry and what she would look like, I wouldn't have believed it, because the person I actually married all those years ago is very different from the kinds of girlfriends that I had in my 20s. So it's a bit like this and this and this. So that's one way of going from London to Paris, one way of going from who you are right now to who's going to happen later. And then, so how do you become comfortable? You do that kind of thing. You get a sample question and you pick some cards and you think about what you might say or what makes sense. And you write it all down, or you write down notes to remind you. And then you pick the same question and then you pick 3 more cards. And so I'm turning them over at the same time. And what have we got? So we've got this person. Are they going to meet somebody and have a good relationship? They're undecided if they even want a good relationship or if they deserve a good relationship, because we get 2 swords and it's upside down. So they can go in 2 directions, but they're not sure which way to go. So what do they have to do? That's step 1. Step 2 is retire from the world for a bit, rather than go out looking tomorrow. Give yourself a bit of time to mull over and think through what you're actually looking for, what you want, or what happened in the past, and what was good and what was bad, and what you want more of and what you want less of in a relationship. And then you get a better chance of finding it. And then the third card is so that's step 1, step 2. Step 3 is the 5 of Swords, and we've got 3 people: a winner, a loser, and somebody going off to comfort the person in the distance. So what do we do with this? So are you going to meet somebody and have a good relationship? The card is upright, so we have to say yes. But maybe once you have conquered yourself, going back to it's all swords. But so it's not so much that you need to meet somebody you can boss around or somebody you can control. But maybe the point is, once you control yourself and are less prone to anger or less likely to take out your hostility on an innocent bystander, if you can get yourself together in that way, then you get a better chance of meeting somebody who's going to be maybe somebody who needs to be saved. So you do that, and now we've got 2 people, 2 stories, and because we can see differences between the stories and differences between the steps. And then we do, because I mentioned the Hook of Holland and Harwich, maybe we pick a third card or a third route. First card, then 7 of Pentacles. Hope this camera can see that. The 7 of Pentacles. So you need to think about who you actually want. You've got the beginning of an idea about who you're looking for, but rather than assume that you know exactly what you're looking for, think it through for a bit and be clear in your own mind about what you're aiming for. And then we've got the 3 of Batons, a card that's a good, hopeful, positive, optimistic card. So yes, if you take some time with the 7 of Pentacles to think it through and become clear about what you actually want, you're going to be looking in the right direction, because the person's here looking, right? So you're going to be looking in the right direction. And are you going to meet somebody? The 6 of Pentacles reversed. So you're going to meet somebody, and you're going to that person, the relationship is not going to work because it's Pentacles upside down, going back to this Pentacle here. So you're going to meet somebody, and it's not going to work, but it's going to get you one step closer. You're going to learn a lot from the failed relationship here, and you're going to discover better what it is you actually want. So how do you become comfortable? I think what you do is you ask a question, and you pick a card or 3 cards, and you figure out what you might say. And you write down the kinds of questions you've got or the things you wonder about the particular card that came up. And I think in the last video I mentioned, if you want to learn mathematics, you do mathematics. If you want to learn the tarot, you do the tarot. You spend time not just looking at the card and trying to learn meanings, but I think what you do is you have a question, you write down the question, and you pick a card at random, and you think about what you might say or what makes sense. The 5 of Batons, what makes sense in the answer to the question that was asked. And because there's nobody there, it's just you with cards. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, because what you're doing is you're activating ideas in your own mind. And it means that the next time you actually do a reading and you got the person there, you're not beginning from zero. You're beginning from quite a long way into your understanding of the tarot. So for the person who emailed me on how to become comfortable, I think that's what my answer would be. Pick a card. I'll have a question, because in a lot of ways, the meaning of the card depends on the question. Pick a question, pick a card, and then spend a bit of time thinking about what you might say and what makes sense. And then notice what you don't know, and then go and research so that you do know. Because it may be that you realize from the card that somebody, the person, it would be good for them if they knew how to meditate or how to relax. But you don't know how to meditate, how to relax. So you watch some YouTube videos on how to relax. And then you've got ideas you can present to the questioner. So instead of saying, you need to learn how to relax. Okay, but how do I do that? I don't know. You need to fight. You're not like that. The card says you need to learn how to relax. And you might try this and this and this, because they work for different types of people. So you're giving the person not just an answer, but next steps that they could follow if they're motivated. That was it for the moment. I hope I covered everything. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a few days. Okay? Bye-bye.